Aloha, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is SprinkleBeard. Today, we are doing the intro video for a very long series we're about to commit to called Reviewing Every Champion in Raid Shadow Legends. This is getting as bad as League of Legends, right? There are so many champions in the game, so many things to review. However, we are a new player-focused channel, so with that being said, I think we're going to have a different insight compared to some of the bigger names reviewing certain champions, or they've already done the legendaries and the epics. And the truth of the matter is, when you're a brand new player, you start off with a lot of heart garbage, right? There are some gems though. There's some characters that you might not realize. Oh crap, I didn't realize that that character had that skill. That's actually pretty useful. Or, oh, if I build that champion up right, they're going to do their job. It doesn't mean they're going to be good. I want to stress that. It means they're going to do their job though, and then it's up to you to keep them alive. The reason that I'm doing this is I want to help focus on new players understanding some of the stats of characters, some of their kits, and one of the best ways to do this is to start off simple, right? When you're teaching anybody something new, you don't teach them how to make a huge wedding cake on their first day, right? First, you might teach them how to make a cupcake. And this little cupcake, right? He's a perfect example for us of why we want to do this. He is probably a huge throwaway character for most people. However, if you did need a magical, pardon me, if you did need a magical defensive down on your team, he technically is usable. Do I encourage it? Not especially, right? But there are reasons when you first start off the game, things like this can be useful. Or you experimenting with certain characters and being like, well, how good is a defensive down really? Oh, this guy has a really high chance of getting that defensive down. Maybe I'll just bring him in instead. And because he's a common, it means it's very easy to book him. As I get more copies of Bandit, I can feed them to the original Bandit in the skill section and upgrade these skills to get that 75% chance to 100%. And then, oh, he operates, right? He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Does this mean that Bandit is a good champion? No, it just means that out of the commons, he has an enormously high chance of landing his debuff, and his debuff is actually one of the more useful debuffs in the game. So, with that being said, this is our intro, right? We are going to go common for common, uncommon for uncommon. We're going to work our way up to the rares. I'm thinking that on Fridays, I might review a legendary champion. So we'll kind of keep things fresh that as we're going through. And I think what I'll do is either a randomized version where maybe I'll throw all the names of the legendaries into like a random number generator, and then that will be how I pick them. Or as I'm reviewing, these champions, right, these commons, maybe I'll do a legendary from their same sect. I kind of like that idea the most, to be honest. That way, as we start reviewing everything from the Banner Lords here, it'll make sense of like, oh, okay, we're getting some of the legendaries up here done. We're going to talk with chat and find out what they prefer the most. In this video series, I am not necessarily going to be talking over gear sets for every single champion. And the big reason behind this is it depends on what you have available, it depends on what you're willing to farm, depends how far into the game you are, depends on what champions you pulled on a previous, prior to coming to these videos for help. So with that being said, yes, there's certain champions I could just say, throw everybody in the lifesteal set unless otherwise specified. Throw all of these champions, all these supports into the speed set unless otherwise specified. The problem with that is you're going to stretch yourself too thin, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I might cover certain things like, yes, some of the attack champions, they can help self-sustain if they're in the life leech set. Or, oh, they have some really good debuffs, so we want the accuracy or perception set. The perception being something in the forge. So this depends on you understanding where to find some of these sets and how to either craft them or how to use them, blah, 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 blah. Again, since we are focused on new player content, the concept of these videos, this is the biggest thing I need to stress, is this champion worth 6-star? For majority of the champions, it is going to be a big no until we get closer to like the epics and the legendaries. The reason behind this is when it comes to your common champions, they actually cannot be ascended, right? So common champions can never have the purple stars at the time I'm recording this video. That makes them significantly, stat-wise, much poorer than any other champion in the game. Likewise, when it comes to the uncommons, it's really going to depend on, hey, did you need that healer that badly? And the answer might be yes. Depending on how you've pulled your shards, you might desperately need a healer. The thing that I'm concerned about is, as I'm reviewing these champions, I'm going to be shedding the positive light on each of these champions. I don't want somebody being like, oh my gosh, this champion he gave such high praise to. I might be giving them high praise for an uncommon, right? So it's not that this character is necessarily super worth you 6-starring. Stat-wise, these stats are abysmal compared to their like epic counterparts. So that was a healer. This is a reviver. So obviously they're a little different, but we're talking about like 3,000 health, 200 to 300 defense, and that matters such an enormous amount. That is like an entire piece of gear that is 6-star plus 16 in stats, which is just like, you know, it's you can't compare oranges and apples together. So we're going to compare all the oranges together. We're going to compare all the apples together, and then we'll move up. So the way that I'm going to be doing this is I have started a spreadsheet here, and I'm slowly inputting data, but we do have the average stats. So as we look at these average stats, we can see down on this bottom side, you know, hey, Swordsman actually has some really low HP, but he actually has above average attack, and 185 attack is not bad. 19 defense is actually negligible, and he has a higher speed than average, you know, compared to the average of the rest of the commons. That is actually pretty good. But if we go down to like Novitiate, right? Yes, he doesn't have as little HP, but he has a minus 12 speed compared to the average stat. And obviously that's going to play a big part in evaluating him, because is it going to be worth it for you to really focus in on a character only to be like, oh, their speed is so bad? That's like 1 to 2 substat rolls on a 6-star weapon, which is huge, which is absolutely enormous. So there's things like this to consider as we talk about each champion. The other big thing is I will kind of mention where a champion can be useful. The reason that this is kind of a difficult statement to make, defense down. If he's magic, anywhere that you need a magic champion that can put a defense down, he's going to be useful, right? He's not going to be terrible. Likewise, when you go to like Bandit and he also has a defense down, but he's spirit, and a lot more force champions are more defensively inclined, you might choose Bandit over Swordsman. It just depends on what you need, why you need it, and what else is going on your account. For a lot of players, the commons are not going to even be something that a lot of you look at, right? If you've started pulling ancient shards already, you are going to be much further ahead of the curve than the purpose of how these videos are going to start off. The purpose of these videos is to get your mind thinking about, hey, why are these stats? What do these stats mean? What do these debuffs mean? And then you can see the progression where here on Bandit, we only have one skill for him to access, no auras, no passives, just one skill with a single decreased defense. And then if we go up here and we compare him to a legendary champion, which is not fair at all, but we have much higher stats. We have aura skills. We might have a, increased critical damage. We might have each hit places a 5% poison on, and that's a 100% chance of this poison being placed on. Things like that are going to greatly skew how you view some of these champions and understand and interact with those champions, right? So please understand, we're going to be focusing more on the positives. I would like to be more of a positive person in general, and focusing in on the positives of champions. This is going to be a good way of making you understand, oh, this is where this champion could be useful. Or, oh, if I'm making a new account, I didn't realize that Bandit has a 100% defense down. That could actually be quite useful. Maybe I'll put him in the counterattack set and take real big advantage of that. There's some fun things like that that you get to think about the further you go on in the game. But likewise, would I put a Bandit in the counterattack set? You know, maybe as a joke, yeah, right? But, you know, it's the same thing about putting him in like the perception set. Why would you put a common in such a high ranking like suit of gear? unless you're doing it for the lulz and the trolls. So I hope that this gives you guys a good idea of how and why we are evaluating every single champion in the game. I do expect this to take me over the next year. I think they're up to 500 champions now, if I'm not mistaken. When we get towards the rares and higher, so like the rares, epics, and legendaries, understand the videos might get on a little bit longer. I will try to name where these champions are best at. It just depends on when you get the champion and what content you are focused on. Just because I say, hey, this champion could be good in Fire Knight, does not mean that he is essential for a Fire Knight team. Likewise, if I say, oh, this champion kicks butt at Ice Golem, it does not mean that you need her to complete Ice Golem. That's not the point. The point is to be, yes, this is where this champion is going to be very amazing for me. Yes, this is how this champion's gonna help me progress through the game. And some of the advice is going to be very generalized. So like a reviver, for instance, anywhere you have a character dying, a reviver is going to be helpful. That's not fair in this game, right? It doesn't mean, like with the attackers as well, anywhere you need damage, you need this champion. It depends on what else you have available on your account when you've pulled things. The way I do want to end this video though, if you are looking to increase the power on your account, if you feel stuck on content, you are looking to get better in Raid Shadow Legends, pretty much every single weekend there is some type of, I'm going to call them an instance, where there is a bonus in the summoning portal for you to either, not mystery shards, but for you to either have ancients, voids, or sacred shards, either a ×2 or a ×10 event. The ×10 event works in a very specific way. So here, if we look at the shards, we have a 0.5 chance for a legendary, 0.5 chance for a void legendary, and then a 6% chance for a sacred to give us a legendary, which would be your magic, spirit, or force champions. On a 10 times event, the way that it works is it first checks for you. It says, does this character, as they're popping for this player, as they are popping a shard, do they, yes, get a legendary, or do they not get a legendary? After that check, right? So if the check says yes, it then says, okay, which legendary do they get? And that is when you have the 10 times chance to get a legendary champion. For this reason, I encourage brand new players to never open during a ×10 event. Your chances of getting a better legendary or getting an epic champion actually become much rarer, or like the same amount of rare, I guess is the better way of saying it, rather than you absolutely getting it. Now there is a mercy system, so if you really want to keep track with pen and paper of how many ancient and void shards you open or how many sacreds you open, and then you want to try your best of luck at the 10 times, by all means, that is on you. Understand that it is very much a random number generator, so it is not a surefire way. You know, just because you've opened 100 shards does not mean that at 120 is when you will pull that next legendary champion, right? It's an all complete roll of the dice. However, in contrast to that, we have the ×2 instance. And the ×2 says, instead of a 0.5% chance of a legendary, you have a 1% chance. Instead of an 8% chance of an epic, you have a 16% chance of an epic, which means your chances of getting a rare champion go significantly down. So they lose 0.5% here, and they lose 8% here. So instead, it becomes like an 83% chance, right, to get a rare. That is a very, very big deal, right? So this takes you from a 1 in 12 chance of getting an epic to a 1 in 6 chance of getting an epic. With that being said, this is how I encourage a lot of brand new players, really wait for those ×2, and they're on every, I'm sorry, it's not every weekend, it's every other weekend. So for instance, this upcoming weekend will probably be, I'm recording this on December 6th. So this upcoming weekend, there will probably be a ×2 weekend, meaning a lot of my viewers and myself might pull shards during this time trying to get more epics onto our account. The epics by far add an enormous amount of value onto your account. They cannot be underrated by any means. Likewise, if you get an epic champion, please never feed it away as food. There's a bunch of new systems in place, like the Guardian Ring, where now there's a reason for you to keep your epics, because now your epics, even if you have duplicate copies of them, can now power up all your other epics. So my Ursula the Mourner here, who's one of my favorite characters, she now is getting 10% HP, 10% attack, and then 15 accuracy and resistance. These stats are extremely valuable for her. I can't wait to get down to the point of defense and speed. That's absolutely going to change how we play with them. Likewise, when it comes to the rares, if you have a duplicate rare, I have an entire video on this this system, by the way. If you have a rare Bannerlord, so I'm going to use this crossbowman here as an example. Let's say you started playing and he's actually not the right one, it's this guy. Let's say you started playing with this gentleman here and you're like, oh man, he's awesome. He does everything I need him to do. He kicks butt. There is then a reason for you to try to keep more of your duplicate Bannerlords, and you can put them in these slots to give your characters an increased percent chance of things or increased accuracy and resistance. If you do not have anybody that meets that criteria. So here I'm going to go to my my demon spawn. Yes, there's a way for me to farm up a lot of food, and as you can see, I have tons of demons. I can instantly max this out, but I use these demons as food. So you have to then weigh out, okay, do I want that faction and that rarity to be empowered, or do I want to work on food? And for a lot of newer players, it is going to be much better for you to get your first 6-star champion. So pretty much any rare champion, you more or less can feed away. There's some big exceptions to that. So maybe look up those names before you do. Ask global chat, right? Global chat typically doesn't troll too much. So if you say, hey, is Apothecary any good? Global chat is like, yes, he's one of the best healers in the game. There you go. Don't feed away Apothecary. However, even if you do feed off one of the best rares in the game, like Apothecary, understand that eventually you get to a point where you get so many ancient shards, or they become farmable for you. So with that being said, you will have the opportunity to get him back. It's not a big deal. Will it slow down your progress? Yeah, a little bit. But also getting that first 6-star champion is going to make a huge impact on your account. So that is why we are reviewing every single champion. It's basically going to be a question of, is this champion worth 6-starring? And at the very beginning here, a lot of the characters are going to be, no, I don't think it is, because they're commons. The last little bit of information that I want to say in this intro, and then we can get on to the actual reviewing of champions, is a big reason that it is not worth it for us to 6-star a common champion in majority of cases, is that when it comes to this gear, as we can see, this amulet is locked off to being 5-star and purple ascended. This banner is locked off by being 6-star and 6-star ascended. So for that reason, pretty much every common I'm going to be like, no, they're never worth 6-starring. Maybe 4-starring is fine. There's a couple of unique uses to characters like that. Maybe if you're in the very early game, you can get away with somebody like Sister Militant and 6-starring them, or 5-starring them. I don't encourage it though. I think it's a big waste of resources versus you getting your first champion to 6-star. The moment you get that character to 6-star, the game changes. Also understand that I have been playing this game for the past year. The game is about 2 years old now. There's going to be champions like Armiger here, who at the time were wildly, wildly amazing. And now with so many new rares and new epics about, his valuableness is lower than what it used to be. Does not mean that he is not worth 6-starring. He absolutely is. Understand though that there might be some jaded information of, oh man, when I first started playing the game, Bellower was the biggest truck ever. He kicked so much butt, and now you're gonna be like, all right, Bellower's okay. I have Skull Crown. Do I want Bellower? And that's where a lot of this information is gonna come from, right? It depends on what you have on your account. It depends on what you're focusing on. It depends on what you need. If you have a super amazing Void Nuker, there's going to be a lot of Void champions that might not be super amazing to you because you already have that role filled. It just depends on what's on your account. So if you'd like to talk, please consider hitting that follow button or the subscribe button, depending on what platform you're on. Hit the notification bell if you want way too much information in your life about Raid Shadow Legends, or if you like hearing me evaluate things. If you really want to help out the channel, you can subscribe or come follow us over on twitch.tv/SprinkleBeard. Right now I stream about every day that I can between 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that should give you a good way, a window if you're trying to interact with me. I do stream on Saturdays a lot of the time, so if you're like, oh man, I work during the week, hit me up on a Saturday, right? Hit me up in the comment section down below and I will get back to you. I'm pretty good about it. I've gotten into the habit where checking my YouTube comments is a daily thing now. So if you ask a question, I should be able to get back to you very shortly. So guys, thank you very much for watching. And of course, until that next time, Sprinkles, do you want to say goodbye? No, you're sleeping? Okay. Ta-ta.